Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Learn JavaScript using Foundry. And in this episode, we are going to learn our next thing. So last episode, we learned about the conditional statements. And we learned about nested if statements and if statements in general, if else statements, all that fun stuff. And in this episode, and probably I'm thinking it might take 2 to 3 episodes to cover loops and iteration. So really quick, just to give you an idea what a loop is and what iteration is, I wanted to, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. All right, let's do it this way. So I'm going to pull up our template because we're going to need this little chunk of code right here. And there was another thing I wanted to kind of go into just a little bit first. Let's go ahead and add a new one. We will call this LOPS loop. Oh, caps lock is on. Loops and ITTRATION. I think that's how you spell it. Close enough. And we'll go ahead and create this. All right, so with loops and iteration, basically if we want to do the same thing multiple times, that's where loops and iteration come into, mostly loops. So let's go ahead, for example, let's say we want to count to 10. And what we would do is, we would output to the console. I'm going to hit F12 real quick, make sure we have everything around the size we want it. Looks like it's not quite there. I'm going to have to shrink this down just a bit so we have our handle when it does that, because I can't move it over further. Alright, so let's say, for example, I would like to count to 10. Well, with the knowledge we have so far, yes, we can do that. We could just do console.log, and we could, inside here, do the number 1, right? And then what we can do is actually kind of duplicate this, or actually let's start with 0 maybe. Let's start with 0, and I'm going to use, I've been testing some things, and there are some shortcut keys that are in Visual Studio Code that actually work in this editor as well, which is really cool. And one of those things is we can duplicate a line really easy. So basically, instead of having to do Control V and Control C, so Control C to copy and then Control V to paste on what, we hit enter, then go to a new line, we can actually do it a lot quicker by holding down Shift, Alt, and then hit the down arrow. And look at that. We can also hit the up arrow, and what that does is actually add above where we were. And I'll give you an example of this. So how many is that? That's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So just to give you a quick idea of what this is if we do 1, enter, oops, nope, just 1 space, enter, 2 space, enter, 3 space, enter, 4 space, oops, darn it, 4 space, enter, 5 space, enter, maybe up to 6 is all we need. All right, so for example, just to show you what this is doing, if I hit Shift, Alt, and up arrow, you'll see that now we have 2 4s, and it put this 4 above the 4 that we started with. If we go here to 2 and I do Shift, Alt, down arrow, you'll see it actually, there's our original, and it put it below. So if I hit Control Z, Control Z, the other thing that's really handy to do is sometimes you need to just move a line up or something. So for example, if we started with 1 here, and then we did, this is going to be annoying, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and then there's our 0, right? So if we were to go and clear this out and run this, you'll see, boom, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. But let's say we actually wanted the 0 to be the very first one. What we can do is we can click on Alt, and then or no, wait, is it Alt? Yes, Alt, and then we can use the up arrow, and now you'll see it took that 0 and moved it up 1. So now we can actually put the 0 at the top by holding the Alt and moving up arrow or Alt down arrow, and we can move a line up and down. This comes in very handy, especially when all of a sudden you're making a function, which we'll go into. I mean, we created our main function here, but we really didn't describe it. We're actually going to look at a really quick other type of function sometime in this looping stuff, but I'm not going to go into details of it because it's a little more advanced than we are. We're taking baby steps. So, but anyway, we can do that. Well, I can't show you that right now. Maybe I'll show you that this next one later. So those are some really handy things that you can do. Also, if you have variables and like you have a whole bunch of variables like named num, and then you're like, you know what, that's a little too vague, I'd rather have it be called number, there is a shortcut key that if I hold them, and then I click on the thing, it will actually select all of them. And I will show you that in just a little while. Actually, I might be able to do it because it doesn't have to be a variable. Let's say, for example, I misspelled log. I don't know, I used a 0 here on accident. So what I can do is if I do what is it, a control and the letter D. Oh, whoops, that's delete line. Hold on. Oh, it's just control click if I remember right. It's just control and then click, double click, and you'll see I'm showing all the, that's not what I'm wanting it to do, I don't think. That isn't. Is this the one where, yes, I can hold control and I can actually click on each of these, and now I have this giant line. So this is one thing. Maybe this wasn't, I'm trying to think what the one I was using, but let's say, for example, here I had L, oops, this one moved wrong. Can I do this? Well, we have that there now. All right, let's try this again. Let's say, for example, I had LOOG and I wanted to get rid of one of those. So here you can see I just clicked it and I added all these O's, right? If I did the same thing and I click it and hit backspace, it will get rid of everything in that line. Now, if you're familiar with Notepad++, that's the same thing as using Alt and dragging, which seems to also work to select just a chunk. So now we've actually got the OG, so we could do all just O's and then G. So the other one I'm thinking of, I could have swore I did it in here, but I'm not sure. Did I do it with Alt and double click? Oh, nope, that just got rid of the one. I don't know. I'll have to look into it, but we're not focused on that. I just wanted to show you a couple niceties. Actually, we need to recreate our 0 guy here. All right, so anyway, back to what we were doing. Oh, the last thing. Sorry, I'm so scatterbrained. The last thing I want to do is I'm thinking we might want to do this with some of our stuff because they can get really long. But if you highlight a chunk and you want to comment it out, so we've talked a little bit about comments, I think. If not, I'll talk about that really quick. But if I hold control and then use the /, which shares the key with the question mark, it will actually comment all that stuff out. All a comment does is tell the compiler to ignore this. This is no longer, I know we've used it various times, but this is actually just a comment. So now if we run this, if we clear this out and hit execute, you'll see it does 0, 1, 8, and 9, right? And then if I highlight all that again and I do control /, it uncomments it. So we might be using that here and there. I just wanted it so that if I'm doing that, you know, and I grab a chunk and you all of a sudden see me comment it out and you're like, wait, how do you do that? I wanted to give you the tools and the knowledge of how that is done. So basically, this is what we have to do. If we want to type out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we need to do it one at a time with our console log. That's all the knowledge we have so far. Well, With a loop, we can actually do this a lot quicker. Another example is with an array. We've talked about arrays a little bit. So if we have const, we're going to create an array here. I'm just going to call it langs or languages. I don't know. I want it to be short. I'm just going to do langs. So this is languages. And we're going to create an array by open bracket to tell it this is going to be a variable is going to have an array object in it. And we're going to do basically the same thing we have above. We're going to have our 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to go 0, comma, space, 1, comma, space, 2, comma, space, 3, comma, space, 4, comma, space, 5, whoops, 5, comma, space. Not having good eye-hand coordination, this is actually pretty hard to do. So the last one does not need that. So if I wanted to access any of these elements, now I think we went over, but an array actually has something that's invisible, which is its index or its key. So if we were to look at this array in Photoshop, for example, what it is we have, let's do it here, 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, comma, those are ugly, 4, comma, oops, I forgot 0, 0, comma, 5, comma, 6, comma, 7, comma, 8, comma, 9, and these are our array values, right? So what you can't see is these are actually, they have index, right? They actually have a key that they're all associated with. And even if this was like car, truck, plane, train, boat, whatever, if those were the values in there, they will be 0 base. So we'll have 0 be this one, 1 be this one, 2 be this one, dot, 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 you know, 8 be this one. Kind of looks, because I'm sticking commas in there, it kind of makes it look like the array again. So if I wanted to access any of these values, for example, if this is our langs, and actually I probably should have done nums. I was thinking of a different thing. But if I wanted to do a variable called nums, right, N-U-M-S, if I wanted to access array element 5, I would actually do in a bracket the number 5. And this would actually output the number 5. Now the only reason this is 5 and the key is 5 is because this is simply a number. If I didn't have the 0 here and this was the first one, it would actually be 0, 1, meaning that this would be 2, this would be 3, this would actually be 4. So if I did this, I would actually get back out 6, right? Because array element is 5 is actually the value 6. I just want to let you know that they have nothing to do with the values that they contain. Okay, so if this, like I said, was car, truck, boat, plane, train, jet, you know, if I told it to do element number 4, well, in this case it'd be this one. So 5 would actually be 5, which was jet. That means it would output jet. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, it might make more sense as we go on. So here, I'm going to change this to nums because that is a terrible name. They're not languages, they're nums, N-U-M-S. However, I want to create another one called languages that we're going to experiment with. So we're going to make a constant langs. Now, because we can do a const on this and we can even change the values within it, because it's an object. We can't change the actual object, but we can change the things within it. So I know that probably doesn't make sense, and even to me it doesn't make much sense. I'm going to copy, because I'm a slow typer, 6 languages from my notes and do this V. So like I was saying, it is 0 base, so this element is actually 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So we have 5 elements, but each one is, based off that 0 thing. So if I want, maybe I could do it this way, maybe make it a little easier. We'll just do this. We'll say that this is element 0. Oops, this is element 1. Quit trying to do that. This is element 2. I don't know how well you can see that. Probably not very, but 3 and 4. So these are what we use to access it. So for example, if I wanted to output, let's say Python, I could do console.log, Python is 2. So we would do our parenthesis and we do langs, and we would do a bracket, 2 bracket. And if we go ahead and run this after we clear it, you'll see we got Python out, right? So if I wanted to get this whole list, I would actually have to go like this, and I would do the, what was the command again? Shift Alt, no, that's yeah, Shift Alt, up arrow, and then come here, go down, down. There's 5 of them, so let's go ahead and say 0, 1, 3, and 4. So if I do that, this is actually going to output our list of our thing here. So here we can see JavaScript, Python, PHP, C#. Now if I tried accessing an element that doesn't exist, obviously we're going to get something else. So Shift Alt, and if I said 5, we're going to get an error, right? Because that one doesn't exist, or is that a different programming language? No, we'll just get back undefined because it doesn't exist. Other programming languages will flat out error and say outside of bounds or something like that. JavaScript, it's a little more patient, and apparently will just say, no, there's an undefined value out there, which is nothing. So we have these ways, and like I said, once again, we could access any of these numbers by doing nums, and if we had our example here, we could do nums, put this above and do nums blah blah blah, and we get the exact same thing. So I'm not going to do that. So let's talk about loops now, because they're going to make our life a lot easier. Let's say, for example, we want to do this one. We want to do our 9 numbers. Well, here we had to write 10 statements to get our 10 numbers, actually, because 0 is the number. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a for loop. And a for loop is when you know or have the ability to know how long the loop is going to be. You know this already. And the way you do it is you type the word for and then parentheses. So this is in an if statement. We would put our condition here, but here we're actually putting our needed, I don't know, how would I call it? Properties? I don't know. Our structure for the for loop. Let's say that. So the first thing we have in a for loop is called our counter, right? So we're going to set our counter. We're going to say let, and we could do var or let here. We couldn't do a const because it needs to change. So let's say let, and we're going to use I. A lot of times I, J, X, and Y, these are really common for counters. I'm going to use I because that's one I use when I'm not, creating a grid or something. So we're going to go ahead and say for I, and then we're going to say semicolon. So it's kind of the same thing as this is a whole statement with the semicolon ending it. However, we put 3 of these in here. The first one, I need to say equals 0. Sorry. So we have to define our counter, which is this first statement. Our second statement is going to be our condition. So we're going to say I is less than, and in this case, I'm going to say 10, right? That's not an I, by the way. So we're going to say I is less than 10, and then the last condition is going to be our actual iterator. It's going to be I plus plus. So that is going to iterate I one time each time it goes. So what this is going to do is it's going to start I with 0, and it's going to come in and it's going to execute whatever code's in here. And then when it gets done, it's going to hit the iterator and say, okay, I add 1 to I, so now I becomes 1. It's going to come back up. It's going to ignore this because now I has been incremented, and it's going to check I if it's less than 10. Well, 1 is less than 10, so it's going to go ahead and go in the loop again. It's going to increment when it hits the end, and then it's going to check the condition again and say I still is less than 10 because it's 2, and it's going to do this 10 times. So this exact same thing we have up here. We're not doing it quite with the array yet because numbers are easy. You can actually add to them, right? So we're going to go ahead and have it output this. So we're going to go ahead and say console.log, and we're going to just simply stick an I in here because we just want to know the value of I. So for this, I'm also going to get rid of, not get rid of, I'm going to go ahead and comment these out and these out because they're just going to take up a lot of space. So what we're going to get now is we're going to simply get a counter, and it's going to count up because we're using the plus plus. So go ahead and run it, and there we go, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we didn't have to do that with an array because, like I said, numbers you can actually add. So we're simply adding 1 to I every time. So this is a for loop. Now it is good to note that we can actually do these different things. If we didn't want to do the incrementing of I here for whatever reason, we can actually get rid of that. We leave the semicolon in there, but somewhere we do need to increment it. So we would need to do I plus plus down in here to let it know that, hey, I do need to increment. So if we go ahead and clear this out, run this, you'll see it's happy as can be to go ahead and do this. We can also declare our I outside of here. So we could actually come here and we could say let I equal 0, like so, and a semicolon, and we can go ahead and get rid of this. Now we do have to have the semicolon in here to say, hey, there is a statement here, but right now I'm not setting it. It's been set somewhere else. This is still our condition, right? So we can actually run this, or at least another, I'm pretty sure I've tested this and it worked. But if I run this, you'll see, yep, still works just fine. So we can actually have that. Now, if we take this out, it's going to think this is the first condition, and now we're getting an error saying, hey, wait a minute, there's supposed to be 3 statements within these parentheses. So we see we're getting an expected identifier and saw instead in the end parentheses. So it expected the semicolon and it didn't get it. So if we run this, we'll actually get an error with that same thing that we were seeing right there. So if you do have your conditions set out here for whatever reason, you still do need to have the semicolon inside to say that this has been declared elsewhere, this has been declared elsewhere. Your condition has to be in here, as far as I know. I don't know how else you could declare that elsewhere. So you can set up a for statement like that. I'm going to go ahead and put this back how it was. And in the next one, maybe the next loop that we're going to do, I'll have it be more odd like this. But I just wanted to show you, yes, you can actually do that. These are kind of optional. So here we are back to where we were, and we now have our countdown, right? So I'm going to make it just so as we continue, we're going to have a space here. And yeah, I think I'm just going to do a space. So let's just console.log and do this and just stick a space in here just so we have a space between our next one. So the neat thing with the for loop is it will just instantly do it. I mean, basically we did the exact same thing we did here in just a couple lines of code, right? Make sure everything's working. Good. So loops are very nice for this. Now, another thing we can do is, let's say we wanted to count down. We actually wanted to start at 9 and count down. Maybe we're doing a initialization of a rocket. So we're going to copy this because I'm slow at typing again. We're going to go ahead and paste this in here. And this time we're going to go ahead and set I to be 10 because that, or actually 9, because that's going, no, it's 10 because we're going to do 0 as well. Is that right? No, we want 9. Let me check my notes. Because I said equal to, yeah. So it can actually, depending on how we write the actual statement in here, it could be 9 or 10. So if we set it to 10, but I want it to start at 9. Yeah, I'm going to do 9. And then what we're going to do is change this to be lower. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out because we were going to do that. I'm going to hit enter here. So we're going to say let I be 9. Then we're going to say I is less than or equal to 0. So once it hits 0, it's going to go ahead and quit. Now, as is, if I were to run this, this would actually crash the browser because it's an endless loop. Because we're going up, so the next iteration will be 10, 11, 12, 13. We will never hit, I will never be less than or equal to 0. So what we're going to do is use our decrement operator instead. And once again, we're going to do this within the actual thing just to show you, yes, you can. So if you're, doing a screenshot or whatever, or you're typing this in, you'll know that you can actually define that outside, but you do need the thing in there. So we're going to do I and minus minus and semicolon. And maybe let's at the very end, let's do, let's go ahead and copy this. Copy, and I'm going to paste it twice. Go ahead and enter here. And maybe right here, we'll just, like it's a rocket, BLASTOFF, and 3 exclamation points. So what this one's going to do is it's going to start at 9, and it's going to check if 9 is less than or equal to 0. If it is, then it will stop. If it isn't, it will go ahead and continue to loop. Actually, I think I want greater than, now that I'm thinking about it. It is greater than. We need to do greater than, sorry. There we go. Now it's right. So what it's going to do is check, is 9 greater than or equal to 0? It is true. So it's going to go ahead and output 9. Then it's going to subtract 1, which takes us to 8. Then it's going to check 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And then it's going to get blast off, right? Now, if we wanted it to actually just hit 1 and then blast off, what we would do is maybe just get rid of the equal to. And we'll try that just to show you. All right, so let's go ahead. We're at 28 minutes already. Jeez. So here we go, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and blast off. If we wanted it to blast off right after, so on 0 it blasts off, we would simply get rid of the equals to. So now if 9 is 0, it is not, I is not going to be greater than 0. It is 0. So if we run that, clear, run, you'll see now we get 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. All right. So this is the for loop basically, and we're at 30 minutes. This did, because I went in all that explanation of other stuff, we're done with the for loop. I think there is more to learn about the for loop. We can actually, you know what? We're going to continue the for loop in the next one because we can nest the for loop. And I wanted to show you that as well really quick. So we're going to call it good for this episode. In the next episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about the nest. We're going to talk about the nesting of for loop. And then we're going to move on to the for in, the for of, and or the for in, the for each and the for of, and then we'll actually get into the do and while loops. So those are all the different types of loops that we're going to go in. That's why I said this is going to probably span quite a few episodes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, subscribe. Click the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and other channels, all in the video description. Tell other people about my channel. Check it out. If they like what they see, they can sub. We grow the channel. Everyone wins. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.